Hello everyone, my name is Ella. Welcome back to another Marvel discussion video. Now I am beyond excited to be talking about the first episode of Loki, Glorious Purpose, but this is a spoiler alert, so if you have not watched that episode yet, go ahead and pause this video, go watch that episode, and then come back and join me. First of all, can I just say, what a first episode, what a premiere, what a pilot, whichever you would like to call it. Cinematic perfection. That's what it is. That's what it was. That's what it was. I will not be accepting any criticisms. Thank you. Good night. But seriously, I've already watched it 3 times today. I would have watched it more if I hadn't gone to Disney Springs to celebrate with some of the limited edition snacks and stuff that they had there. But I'm about to watch it for a 4th time once I finish filming and hop in the bath for today. So needless to say, I love this episode and I love this show already. Let's talk about it. First of all, I just, like, as soon as the first shot came on screen, I started crying. I started crying. And I stayed that way the whole episode. I was either crying or on the verge of tears the whole episode, other than when I was not laughing, because this show is hilarious. So funny. And we'll get into that a little bit more, but I just wanted to lay that out. First things first, I cried the whole time. Also, Loki got his own Marvel Studios logo that's green and gold, which I love. I love that. I think it's beautiful. I wish there had been more Loki in, like, the Marvel Studios intro, but mayhaps that's me asking for too much. From here on out, I'm just gonna kind of voice my thoughts and questions as the episode progressed. My first question that I had was, when Loki used the Tesseract and branched off, like, was there a reason that he went to Mongolia? Like, are we supposed to, like, is that going to be important later on, or was that just, like, somewhere? Also, the fact that he got to immediately reprise his iconic "I am Loki of Asgard and I am burdened with glorious purpose" line, only to be met with someone who doesn't understand what he's saying at all. Hilarious. One of many hilarious moments in this show. Also, the slow-mo when the time hunter, punches him in the face, and it's just, like, so, like, his I don't even know how to explain it, but, like, when they move it into, like, the 1/16th speed, I don't know, there's something about, like, body humor, I guess, punchy humor, that's always kind of, like, ridiculous, but in slow motion that was just even more hilarious. And I want to know how they filmed it. Like, how did they, like, did they just film it and then just slowed that part down and then overlaid the hunter doing her, like, regular speed thing, and, like, they just, like, married those two scenes, or, like, what happened? How did they do that? I want to know how they did that. Also, something this show made very clear, and really I should have planned for more, was how mean Loki is. Like, I forgot how mean 2012 Loki was, and that is so apparent throughout this whole episode. He's just mean, he's snarky, he's a dumb idiot, but that's any Loki, really, if we're being honest. But, like, he's so mean and snarky, and he thinks, like, everyone is beneath him, and that is in character. Like, I don't want to say that that's not in character, but, like, I've gotten so used to, like, post the Dark World Loki and Thor Ragnarok Loki, and, like, it's just, like, it's so weird how, like, different of a person 2012 Loki is and Ragnarok Loki is. Like, I was worried that I wasn't going to like the show as much, because I feel like we were kind of losing a little bit of character development for Loki, having him go from everything that he became in Ragnarok back to this 2012 Loki. But it works, and I think it's hilarious, and it's kind of like greeting an old friend, almost. in a really weird kind of way. The clothes robot, when he gets brought to the TVA, cute. I want the clothes robot. The little computerized face. I love robots. And speaking of robots, that whole scene with Loki doubting whether or not he's a robot, honestly, same. Like, I would do the same thing. It's so relatable. But just like the way that Tom Hiddleston played that was just impeccable. You're gonna see a lot of chef's kiss is in this video, and I am so sorry for that, but I just really think that this episode was such a perfect introduction to the show, and like 90% of the show was chef's kiss. Also, I really thought it was funny that, like, of all the ways that Loki could have traveled from like room to room in the TVA, it was falling, and it just made me think of like that line in Ragnarok where he's like, I've been falling for 30 minutes, and I was like, this poor man, he just keeps falling. He's falling everywhere. The ticket scene was also funny, and I think what my whole thing is that I've never really considered Loki a comedic character in any capacity. Like, I feel like even in Ragnarok, Loki was just more of like a serious character that was just kind of like pushing the boundaries a little bit. But in this show so far, almost every single scene with Loki is hysterical. And I don't know if it's just because I've never really seen Tom Hiddleston in like a role that has the capacity of specifically being comedic. But he was in this show, he is in this show, and I don't know if it's his comedic timing or if it's just the fact that I watched this at 3:30 in the morning and everything was hilarious, or what it was, but I don't know. The way Tom Hiddleston played the scene when he watched the guy that didn't take a ticket get like imploded, and just like the look on his face, and then the like frantic searching for his ticket. I'm gonna do it again. Chef's kiss. Also, this has nothing to do with Loki specifically. I mean, it does the show, but not Loki as the character. But as I've mentioned in previous videos, I haven't watched any trailers, any footage at all that has been released since the second trailer for the show. And so I knew Miss Minutes was a character, and I knew her little catchphrase was like, hey y'all, or whatever. So I had this very specific image in my head of her being like this little like country, like not old lady, but like a nice country lady with a little bit of a southern accent, and like that is exactly how I wanted her to be. And I am pleased to say that she was exactly what I dreamed she would be when she made her first appearance in the show. And I don't know, I'm so excited. I love her already, and I hope we see more of her in the show. I don't know if we're going to, because I feel like that was very much a one-off, you know, explaining what's gonna happen if someone branches off in a time. But I like her a lot. I really like Miss Minutes a lot. And she's voiced by Tara Strong, who is just, if you grew up in the 90s like me, Tara Strong voices like everyone, along with like Greta Lyle and a bunch of other famous people, Summer Cree, but just Tara Strong. She's really just so versatile. You gotta love her. And speaking of Miss Minutes describing what happens when you branch off into a different timeline, they made it extremely obvious that Loki is 99%, 100% in my book, but like, I'll just give it a little room for error. 99% chance that Loki is going to be in Multiverse of Madness, because not only did they mention that if you branch off from reality and create a new reality, that it would be a possible multiversal war started, but they also mentioned that it is a Nexus event, and if you recall from WandaVision, they called Wanda a Nexus being. So I feel like that seals the deal for me, but I also feel like Marvel could go wherever they want with that, and they could decide that it's just a coincidence, or that it's just going to be used as an explanation for the events that do happen in Multiverse of Madness. But evidence enough for me. I keep looking at my book, my note taking, and there's just so many lines throughout here where I'm like, Loki, please, please, like, just different, like, variations of Loki, please, and just, like, I don't know, I guess I'm just glad to have content where Loki is just, like, the center of attention, and maybe that's why I haven't really seen any other side to Loki as you know, just him usually just being, like, a very serious, very broody, trying to be a villain, kind of sad, kind of lonely boy, because that's just kind of the part he's had to play in the other movies that he's been in, and now that he's center stage, he gets to have more of a, like, rounded character. Not to say that he wasn't rounded before, but, like, I feel like there's more room to play different sides of a character when you're the main character of a show or a movie, so I really hope that we get to keep seeing Loki be hilarious and comedic, and dramatic, and just all these different qualities that just make Loki so great. I'm so excited. I mean, skipping over to the little church scene that I think happens in France, they were speaking in French. I don't remember what the title card said when it switched to that scene where the Minutemen have been killed by this mysterious variant that has escaped. I feel like they very blatantly are trying to mislead people into thinking that this bad guy is Mephisto. And I will say, though, that I do know that the people that worked on the show have already come out and said it's not Mephisto. This is purely coincidence. We already had this all set up before everything with WandaVision happened. It's definitely not Mephisto. And while I know that, and while they have said that, there are fans out there that are going to be Mephisto. So that'll be fun to watch unravel. But I will say it took me until the second time watching it to realize, and maybe that's because after I watched it when I watched it the second time, I had the information at the end of the episode that I didn't have when I watched it the first time. So instead of being like, oh, Mephisto, I was like, oh, a horned figure with a blue tongue and green robes, Loki. So, I'll talk about that a little bit more when we get to the end of the episode. But yeah, I think it's going to be interesting to see who/what exactly is this variant, and I think there's a lot of room to play with it. But again, I'm going to discuss that more once I get to the end of the episode. This was a little bit, this is just me being, like, touchy, but I don't know, I really hate that they called him Loki Laufeyson instead of Loki Odinson, and I know it's just, like, by the book, because Loki is Laufey's son, but it just, I don't know, it feels weird having him referred to as Loki Laufeyson instead of Loki Odinson, because I feel like in the movies, he was never really referred to as that. Like, the only time he was ever really referred to as that was when Odin said that he was the son of Laufey, and Loki said Laufeyson. And so, like, I don't know, like, that, again, that's just me. I feel like it's weird. Like, it didn't take away from the episode at all. I was just kind of like, I would prefer for him to be called Loki Odinson. Another note about Loki. He's such a snark. Truly, he is. Like, again, like, I've forgotten, like, how absolutely snarky Loki was in the Avengers, because I rewatch Ragnarok so much that I'm just, like, so used to that characterization of Loki. But it's so good to have this version of Loki back. I think it just adds to the comedic quality that he's getting to have as the main character. And he just has so many good quips and one-liners. The whole conversation with Casey when he escapes from the Time Theater, and he's like, I'm gonna gut you like a fish if you don't help me. And Casey's like, what's a fish? And he's like, how do you not know what a fish is? Like, I don't know. I just want to say again, Tom Hiddleston and his comedic timing and his just comedic prowess in general, I love it. Skipping back to the scene of Loki being judged, I just want to talk about the fact that Loki very casually mentioned that he knew that the Avengers time traveled just because he could smell the cologne on 2 different Tony Starks. I feel like that was really glossed over in the show as a whole. Like, they were just kind of like, oh no, yeah, they were supposed to do that. You weren't supposed to branch off. And I was just like, we just found out this man knew that the Avengers were time traveling, and like, you're acting like it's nothing. Like, I feel like it takes skill to be able to be like, ah, yes, time traveling is afoot. But the TVA, I guess the TVA just like, as we learn throughout the episode, the TVA is just like a whole other standard of just like existence. And it's kind of scary. I think it's scary, and I think that Loki thinks that it's scary because he's never encountered anything like it before. So I think it'll be interesting to see what kind of a role the TVA plays, not only through the rest of this series, but perhaps in the future in other movies and shows. Because clearly they have a lot of power, and they have a lot of authority. And it's just, I don't know, they've got some explaining to do, truly. Moving forward from that scene, once Loki is already with Mobius, I feel like it was very telling that Loki sees anything that is like magnificent and otherworldly and mayhaps even Asgard-esque, if I might say so. Like, he sees anything like that and he's just immediately like, that's magic. And I don't know, I thought that was interesting about him. Like, I guess because, you know, clearly they want us to think that Loki thinks that he's above basically everyone else. And I guess for him to see that, you know, other people besides Asgardians can have this like amazing technology and architecture and stuff like that is just kind of like eye-opening for him, maybe, almost, in a sense. So I don't know, I thought that was just like an interesting little detail, and I wanted to mention it because I thought it was cool. I thought it was interesting that Loki would be convinced that anything that's just fantastical is immediately magic. And also that scene, and also the series in a whole, this music in this show, I love it. The theremin work, the violins, the everything, this music, as soon as this album is available for purchase, I will be purchasing it. Not just because it's Loki. Okay, a little bit because it's Loki. But this music is so fun. The intro music really felt like, this is where I'm gonna get the Disney people. The intro music, and even I guess kind of the like end credit music as well. But the music sounds like the Star Tunnel music from Space Mountain. And I just want to say that I pointed that out on Twitter, and when I was texting my brother about it, before he'd even like gotten online at all, because he doesn't get online before he watches the episodes, because he doesn't want to get spoiled. But he texted me when we were talking, and he was like, the theme music sounds like epic music overlaid with the Star Tunnel music. And 5 seconds later he goes, LMAO, you tweeted that. And I was like, yeah. But I thought it was so funny that we were just like on the same page. Like, we just had that connection. I don't know. I like connecting with my brother in that way, and I think it's really great when we just kind of like read each other's minds that way. But yeah, the music for this show, impeccable. Okay, this detail is something that bothers me, and it requires a little bit of explaining from both Thor 1 and also the novelization that's Loki Where Mischief Lies, which is, if you don't know, a novel that came out a couple of years ago now, I think. I want to say it was like 2019. That is canon compliant. It is absolutely within the MCU canon, but it takes place on Midgard. It's 19th century Victorian era So 2 centuries before we see them in the MCU. But the way this ties into the show is that when Mobius and Loki are talking about trusting people when they first step into the time theater, Loki mentions that trust is for children, I think, and dogs. And how does he know what a dog is? Because in Thor 1, Thor doesn't know what a dog is. And in Loki Where Mischief Lies, when he's talking with the Midgardian that he has to work with, Theo mentions dogs in regards to asking if Asgard has dogs, and Loki's like, I don't know what that word is, so I'm going to say that Asgard doesn't have them. So, how does Loki know what a dog is? And on a side note, if Asgard never had any dogs, Thor doesn't know what a dog is, Loki doesn't know what a dog is, Hela has a dog. Fenris is a dog. My theory, I'm so off track right now, but I had this thought the other day and I cannot let it go. But my theory is that once everything went bad with Hela and she was banished and her army was like killed or laid to rest or whatever you want to call it, and Fenris was too, maybe Odin just like didn't want any dogs on Asgard at all. Maybe because it reminded him of Hela, I don't know, but that's my theory. I feel like Odin just didn't want dogs on Asgard anymore, and that's why Thor doesn't know what a dog is, and Loki doesn't know what a dog is. So how does Loki know what a dog is in this show? How does he know what a dog is? How does he know? Did he read about him? How does he know? And now we're going to talk about the greatest hits, Loki's greatest hits scene, which, first of all, Owen Wilson as a whole in this show, I was very skeptical about, just because I do know him for like extreme comedy. I think the only role that I have ever seen him in that was not comedy was the 1999 movie The Haunting, which is a horror movie, but even then he still had a very comedic role in that. So I was very skeptical about him being in this show, even though I knew it was meant to be a comedy, just because I'd never really considered Loki a comedic person, so I didn't really know how the dynamic was going to work. But it works. Owen Wilson and Tom Hiddleston together, if they were this good in this episode, I cannot wait to see how the rest of the show goes. Their chemistry is impeccable. I don't know how many times I've said impeccable in this video. I should have put a counter on here if I knew how to edit a counter into my videos. But, it works. Owen Wilson works. He really does work. He works. He works in the MCU. Who would have thought? So, the scene that Mobius shows Loki, I guess not really shows because obviously Loki was there when it happened, but the whole DB Cooper thing threw my idea of where this show was going out the window, because I thought that this show was going to be Loki just kind of like bouncing through time and like rewriting history in a way, kind of, and like being different like mysteries or iconic people in history, and like it was just going to be Loki doing that. So I had assumed that was going to be a scene, you know, like later in the show, you know, that it was going to be, you know, just shenanigans, but to find out that like the idea is that Loki was actually DB Cooper, I don't know. Like, it's funny, it's great, I love it, but like, I don't know what the show's gonna do now other than chase this variant throughout time. But I really thought that's where the show was gonna go, was time shenanigans with Loki. But obviously that will still happen, but it won't be the picture that I had in my head. So, rip to that idea. There was another great Loki scene, 2012 Loki scene in this little part, when he gets frustrated and he like slams his hands down on the table and goes to get up, and Mobius like rewinds him so he has to sit back in the chair, and Loki's like, I got up for effect, and Mobius is like, I'm sorry, go ahead, and Loki's like, it won't be the same anymore. Like, I love him so much. Like, I would just like to say that I was very wrong in thinking that Loki would not be a great comedic character, because clearly I was wrong, and I am owning up to that. I was extremely wrong. This video is getting very long. My camera's already stopped recording twice now, so I'm going to have to rush through this a little bit just so you're not watching an hour-long video, but I would just like to say how cruel it was for us and for Loki to make him watch Frigga die. And not only that, but to just like, I mean, like, obviously we as the viewers kind of knew that it was Loki's fault that Frigga died. But like, for Mobius to just like tell him that that was his fault, and also just this whole like, everyone in this show, I feel like, is making such a big deal about saying that it's not Loki's story. It's not Loki's story. You know, like, you only exist to hurt people and make people sad. Like, that was the only thing in this show that didn't sit right with me. Like, I don't like the idea of anyone in real life or in a show existing just to help someone else become a better person. I don't like the idea of that at all, and I don't like the idea that they kept like re-insinuating that throughout the show. But anyways, so that scene where Mobius showed Loki that he was the reason that Frigga died, and then Loki gets mad and he says that he's gonna kill Mobius, and then Mobius says, like, you killed your mother. I was just like, ooh, oh my gosh, I can't believe he went there. But yeah, that was so unexpected and just so like, oh my gosh. Like, and like, admittedly Mobius had said, you know, this is gonna get real now, but like, that was almost too real. Like, ouch. And then there's that quick little scene where Loki, you know, escapes, and he finds Casey and he threatens to gut him like a fish, and Casey doesn't know what a fish is, and then he gets the Tesseract back, and then he sees that there are just like multiple Infinity Stones, and they're like, oh yeah, we use them as paperweights. Like, record scratch. Like, everything the Avengers went through. Tony died, Nat died, Vision died, and for what? For the Time Variance Alliance to just use the Infinity Stones as paperweights? I quit. And I think that was the moment for Loki too, where he was just kind of like, these people have way more power than I've ever seen anyone have ever in my life, and this is something serious. And that was a whole moment. Like, I legitimately thought Loki was going to burst into tears. And he did a little bit later when he went back into the Time Theater and basically watched the highlights of the rest of his life, you know, had he not taken that Tesseract. And it was, I don't know, just like seeing him so emotional, because I feel like, yes, we have had moments in the MCU up until this point where Loki has had moments of being emotional, and like we'll see like a stray tear, or like we see him grieving Frigga in Thor the Dark World, but we've never seen him like break down like he did when he watched Frigga died, and then when he watched Odin die, and then when he saw how close he and his brother became, and then when he watched himself die at the hand of Thanos. Like, that was the moment. Like, when I saw the way that Loki just like, his expression changed, the color in his face drained, I was like, oh my gosh, this poor child has been through so much. And it just like, it hit me like a ton of bricks, and I knew this show was gonna have moments that were going to make me hurt, but I wasn't expecting so many in the first episode, and I wasn't expecting them to be like bam, 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 right there in my face. So I am extremely worried about how the rest of the show is going to play with my heart, because that was a lot. Seeing Loki break down like that and then subsequently admit that he is a weak, flawed person and that he doesn't want to be, and that he puts on all these facades so that he appears not to be, like, oh, it got so deep so fast. And I think it's going to be really interesting to see how Loki continues to change how he views himself and changes his story in a way, you know, to see who he becomes from here. I guess it'll be like a different kind of character arc from the one that we've seen. And I'm excited to see where it goes. And then so obviously the big reveal of this episode was right there at the end, when Loki finally agrees to help Mobius with this variant, and then he finds out that this variant that is killing people is himself. Yeah, so that, like, having that knowledge when I rewatched the show the second time, was when I made the connection with the kid pointing out the devil figure in that church, as not necessarily saying that it was the devil or Mephisto that had killed all these people, but that it was someone with horns, dressed in green, with a blue tongue that did it. And I was like, oh, he didn't literally mean a devil or Mephisto, he meant Loki. But with that, we have so many possibilities, because I know the show is playing with different versions of Loki. So there are very many different versions of Loki it could be that is the person in the cloak, this variant that is killing people. My brother's first thought was that it is a Loki that has accepted his heritage as a frost giant, which would explain why he's blue. Blue tongue, maybe blue appearance. We don't know those specifics yet. But then the one that he thinks the most likely to be true, and once he explained it, I kind of agreed with him too, is that it's Lady Loki, because we both feel like they're trying to make a big deal about not showing, what this person looks like at all. They're dressed in a cloak and everything. And it kind of seems like they are expecting it to be a man that is doing this. And then it would just be really cool if it turns out to be Lady Loki instead, which I have said before, I really, really, really want Lady Loki in the show. And as far as spoilers go, I'm pretty sure that we're getting her. So I think that would be a really cool way to introduce her. And then personally, this is just a whimsical theory that I had, mostly just because I reread that Loki book. I think it would be interesting if it was Amora, the Enchantress, disguised as Loki, but again, I think that's very unlikely, and probably not going to happen at all. As far as other theories and ideas for this show goes, I really don't have anything. I am literally only going off of what I have in this first episode, because like I said, I haven't been watching any other trailers or TV spots or anything like that. I haven't looked at the IMDb page, so I don't know who all is in this show, actor-wise or character-wise. So this is all just kind of up in the air for me. And I'm just kind of along for the ride. And honestly, that's how I like it. I don't want to expect too much or plan for too much, because I don't want my expectations or plans to be dashed and then feel like an idiot, or feel like the show's going to be less enjoyable because what I wanted wasn't right. So I'm just kind of along for the ride for this one, and I can't wait to see where the show goes, because it honestly, with just the first episode, has lived up to my expectations already. It's funny, it's emotional, it's doing some deep character work with Loki that I think is going to bring new sides to the character that we haven't seen yet, and I think it'll be really interesting to see how it ties into the previous shows, the previous MCU movies, and the future MCU movies and shows. So I am just all around so excited for this show. I cannot wait to see where it goes from here. And that's my discussion video for the first episode of Loki. I am very sorry that it is most likely going to be at least 30 minutes long. I just had a lot to say, and I hope that people watch this video regardless, because I just like talking about Loki, and I think the show is going to be really cool and really fun. So if you have any ideas of where you want the show to go, or ideas that you think, theories where you think this might, theories about the show, anything like that, spoiler free, please, if you can, leave a comment down below, because I'm really interested to see what you guys think might happen. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like, subscribe to my channel if you haven't already, and if you'd like to be notified of when I post a new video, go ahead and click that little bell icon somewhere down there. If you're watching me just for my Marvel videos, I will be back next Friday with a discussion about episode 2 of Loki, and if you watch me for my regular content, I will be back on Wednesday with a normal, fun, probably ridiculous, maybe a talkie video. I haven't decided yet. That'll be next Wednesday. Thank you all so much for watching, and I hope you have a wonderful weekend. Bye!